Well, we started 2024 with a very shitty Sony non-Spider-Man Spider-Man movie, and we're going to end 2024 with a very shitty Sony non-Spider-Man Spider-Man movie.
It's only appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Happy New Year.
When the man comes around. When the man comes around.
Embrace who you really are, son.
When the man comes around.
Kraven the Hunter. Now, I will say this. Because it's rated R, I was kind of looking forward to it just a little bit. I thought maybe here's what these Sony movies needed. They needed that R-rated kick in the ass that all the others were missing.
Although the trailers were not anything to write home about necessarily, it didn't make it look like it was going to be shitty necessarily.
Yeah, I didn't think going into this that it was going to suck worse than basically every other Sony film.
Maybe not Madam Web.
What? What?
That's a toss-up.
Yeah.
I think it just sucks for different reasons.
Correct, yeah.
Madam Web was atrocious, but at least it was comical to laugh at.
It's way more fun to watch.
This is a far less funny because it's bad movie. It was just boring as fuck.
Boring.
Oh, you just figured that out now?
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and look, the start of the film actually wasn't too bad. The whole sequence in the prison. Not too bad.
It was a good way to intro us to the character.
Yeah, good setup. Besides a few dodgy CG shots of him jumping and running up walls.
Across the film, right off the bat, the CGI was dog shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that stuff sucked when he was, like I said, jumping on the walls.
Yeah, when he's climbing on the walls, he just looked like he was sliding across the surface. It just looked shitty.
Yeah, but then, like, once they introduced the first animal in the movie and you see the wolf in the snow,
yeah.
Oh my God,
It looked bad. It looked bad.
And it was just balls throughout the entire
Yeah.
film. But anyways, that opening wasn't too bad to set up the character.
It felt decent. It sets the character up. It shows like what he's out there doing as this character in present day. He's going after bad guys. That's what he does. He hunts bad guys.
Bullshit.
This villain, who's not a villain anymore.
No,
now he's just a hero.
We've got another Sony anti-hero film, which there's nothing anti about him. He's just a good guy.
My father puts evil into the world. I take it out.
He's just a good guy who goes after bad guys, and the way he stops them is by just killing them.
And I understand that this is a Spider-Man-less Spider-Universe film, but
once again,
the implication is that I guess at some point he was going to go to New York and butt heads with Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's subtle references to Spider-Man, the Spider-Man world in this film.
But there's no way, like, especially with the way this movie ends, like, he's like a good guy. You know what I mean? So
I was trying to think of, like, watching this movie, like, what would have to happen for him to want to kill Peter Parker?
What's the turn?
Like, by the time this movie's over, you're just like, well, why would he want to kill, like, a hero like Spider-Man? It's so stupid.
It makes no damn sense.
He's basically the Punisher. With some powers.
He's a jacked up on voodoo juice Punisher.
He definitely is jacked.
Yeah.
And that is the one of two positive things I can give this film.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's abs.
Yeah, I mean, the fucker did get in great shape. I'll give him that.
Gay!
You know, I mean, aside from that, the guy, this is him the whole movie. He's got this stupid fucking like smolder on his face.
Yeah.
And he's got this retarded walk where he's like...
He's his wide stance. I couldn't tell, like, what is your accent? Are you supposed to be Russian? Are you supposed to be British? Are you supposed to be American? Like, what the fuck are you?
Yeah, it was very confusing.
Because his dad, played by Russell Crowe, has that very thick Russian accent.
Power is about strength.
But he's just like...
Yeah.
Because he spends time as, like, a student in the States, but then he lives in England.
Right.
But then he's got, like, Russian roots. Like, it was like, well, okay.
Yeah, but there's a flashback sequence showing when he was a kid with his brother, and when they're kids, they don't have accents. They're American, basically.
Yeah.
And then when they get older, the brother, played by that guy who played the retarded twin or whatever in Gladiator 2.
The Emperor, yeah.
Yeah. He's got just like an American accent. So all these things just make the accent just a weird thing to process. But yeah, so we get this opening, decent enough opening, and then it flashes back, and that's when the movie just gets fucking boring and like never recovers from being boring.
And really poorly written.
Oh my
We go
God.
into like this half an hour flashback, basically his origin. So you learn about his relationship with his mobster dad and his brother, and they get picked up from school, and Russell Crowe's like, yeah, so your mom's dead. She killed herself because she's just weak. So I'm just gonna, teach you to take over my business. Your brother, he can, fuck off. And he takes them on this hunting trip to, I guess Ghana or somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
That's when we get the incident where he becomes the Kraven character. But parallel to this is where they introduce Calypso, who is like the voodoo priestess character, I guess, from the comics that he's kind of like associated with, or he dates or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We get introduced to her in one of the worst written scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time, with her grandmother, where her grandmother like explains how she comes from a powerful line of women. They've got their potions and their They're
just talking on patio chairs.
Dude, they're sitting out, like looking at the safari, talking on patio chairs. And in this horrible, horrible expositional dialogue, like nobody talks like this.
Shot in front of the worst
green screen you've ever seen.
This whole film looks like shit.
Yeah.
Well, no shit.
So Kraven, as a boy, he's out hunting with his dad, and they come across like this crazy lion that's like the stuff of legends, like fucking
Who's been
Mufasa
terrorizing the villages
right?
for
So
years.
he gets attacked by this lion. As he's dying, the lion gets shot by Russell Crowe, and the lion's blood like drips into his wound.
One little drop.
In some of the shittiest CGI blood I've ever seen.
Yes.
And then Calypso's just like, she comes across this.
She just happens to be there.
She happens to be there. She's on a safari with her parents, and she's like, wait a minute, there's some shit going on in this brush. She just runs off, gives him the potion, and just leaves. And then the kid basically dies, but then he comes back to life, and now he's got the Kraven powers.
Yeah, whatever the fuck.
The fuck. So he's like, he's got animal powers, I guess. He can run super fast. He's strong.
The first time that he realizes that he falls off the ledge and then does like a cat fall where he lands on his feet.
Yeah, he lands on his feet.
Yeah.
And like he's got the eagle eye thing where he can kind of like zoom in with his eye, just see like far distances.
Yeah.
So he goes off, like he runs away from home, leaves his brother with Russell Crowe, and he just goes into the like wilderness in Siberia to just live and train. And we get caught up to present day, and now he's just like this hunter who goes after this jacked hunter who goes after poachers and drug dealers, just bad guys. Okay, I guess, sure, why not? You got these powers, I guess go do some good in the world.
We never learn why he has that motivation to stop these people.
Nope, he's just, this is what I'm gonna do.
Right.
Okay.
And then apparently he's got a kill list and he's kind of following that kill list.
Sure.
But again, they don't go into that or why or how he developed that.
Yeah, he just kind of has a list and he's killing people.
Yeah, this movie just kind of exists.
Yeah,
Barely.
This is like where he's just kind of floating around for like a half an hour. And then he has this little first meet with Calypso in another painfully awkward scene.
That perhaps might be the most awkward scene of the whole film. Anytime they were on screen together.
Dude, the chemistry, zero.
Non-existent. It was like anti-chemistry.
The dialogue between them was fucking horrible. Like, and I don't know if it was just how poorly it was written, or if the actress playing Calypso was really that horrible of an actress.
Maybe it's both.
Like, I just couldn't tell.
I think she was really bad, and normally I like Aaron Taylor Johnson, but
he's decent. But
in this he was shit. And like, yeah, you can blame the script. It was weird. It was like a combination of the script, but also just the way these scenes were cut. Because you can tell that like the scenes would have been less awkward had they cut some of those weird fucking pauses out.
Yeah.
Just kind of sped the pacing up a little bit.
Yes.
You know, but they didn't do that. I mean, would it have helped that much in the grand scheme of things? No, because the dialogue is still shit. But in terms of it just feeling less awkward,
yeah,
it would have. But no, the scenes are just like, and I like breathing rooms in scenes, you know, and I feel like that's kind of a lost art nowadays, is having some breathing room. This did it, like, this does have breathing room.
No, this was the
but
perfect example of like, somebody says their line, and then there's like a beat, and then it cuts to the next person, and then they say their line, and then there's a beat, and then they cut to the next person.
Yes.
And it's like painful to watch.
Oh, it's fucking
because you're seeing on
embarrassing.
full display how shitty the dialogue is, and how shitty the editing is, and the pacing.
Yes.
And it just kept getting worse and worse.
No, it did. And I cannot stress to you guys how bad the dialogue is. It is fucking atrocious.
Yeah, it's so expositional and just matter of fact, like, we need to go over here and do this thing. Okay, let's go over here and do this thing. Like, it was that type of shit dialogue.
And
like, there was no subtlety to it.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, like, after he says a line, he just does his stupid, like, fucking, like, smolder and eyebrow lift, and it's like, bro, that's not enough, man.
What were you doing this for?
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck? You look stupid.
Yeah. So then we get introduced to our big bad in this film, Mr. Pollux Troy himself, Rhino.
Was he the big bad? I guess.
I guess he was one of the big bads. Like, the movie was unsure about who the villain was for most of the time, because that character hates Russell Crowe, but so do Kraven and his younger brother.
Yeah.
Like, everybody just hates Russell Crowe. So it's like, well, they're not really at odds then, and they don't really pit Rhino at odds with them until like the third act, kind of.
Yes.
So you get like this other guy who's just some other mobster who kidnaps the younger brother and then tries to use that against Kraven to like get close to like Russell Crowe. And then Rhino gets his hands on the younger brother. He's like, yeah, I didn't have nothing to do with kidnapping you, but like, I'll use this as an opportunity to, I guess, maybe take your dad out.
And as convoluted as all of that sounds, you're still missing an element too. You forgot about that time-stopping...
Oh, the foreigner?
Yeah, the foreigner. That fucking guy who just...
Dude.
Again, they don't explain powers in this movie at all, so you're just kind of lost. Takes off his glasses, looks at a person, and then just counts 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and then he just like goes behind them, and the person's like, "Wait, what just happened?" And then he kills them.
Yeah, what the?
So he's like I think the foreigner is like an assassin character from the comics, but I don't think he has powers. I think he's just like a really good assassin.
Right.
As far as I remember, I don't know that much about that character.
But he's played by the Down syndrome version of Jon Snow.
Yes.
And you would expect someone that was like an assassin like him to be formidable, someone that's like an equal to Kraven.
Yeah.
And Kraven is like fucking built and jacked, and this guy wears a turtleneck. He's just like a skinny little bitch. It's like anyone who's a little bitch in this movie, they put a turtleneck on them. I don't know if you
like
noticed
the little
that.
brother,
Like
he gets like the baby blue turtleneck on. And
So
it's like kind of fitting for the character.
Oh, the guy's supposed to be kind of a pussy. Just give him a turtleneck.
Just give him a baby blue turtleneck.
He might be gay. Let's just give him a turtleneck.
That'll answer everybody's questions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that dude's kind of like going around doing his thing.
There was no point to that character.
Yeah.
And then that character has the most unceremonious death ever.
He's fighting Kraven at the end.
Yeah.
And he's beating Kraven because, like, how do you stop someone with that type of power? Unless, like, they're distracted. So he's, like, about to kill Kraven, and then Calypso just shows up in the nick of time to, like, shoot him in the eye because she's, like, an archer, I guess.
Which is also lame because you never get to see the hero of the film take him out, which could have been satisfying.
Yeah.
But nothing in this film is satisfying.
Right.
I feel so unsatisfied.
And then it just culminates in Kraven going after his brother. The Rhino character, he has like this little backpack on with this IV that keeps him normal looking, and he takes the thing out, and then his skin just like hardens and he becomes Rhino. The way he explains it was like he got this procedure and it like made his skin harden, but then like he's got like the horn of a rhino, and it's like, well, why does he have that?
Yeah.
Like, he called himself the Rhino just because he had, like, this impenetrable skin. It wasn't because, like, he had the DNA of a rhino or some shit in him. It just, okay.
They mentioned that he underwent an unorthodox procedure in New York from some doctor.
With some doctor.
Who I'm sure is probably from the comic
Probably a
books
character that
yeah,
I don't remember, but...
Don't know, don't care. Stupid.
He fights Kraven as the Rhino and gets bested. He dies. And then the brother gets saved, and then it like cuts to a year later, and then the brother now is like, he grew a pair, I guess?
And now he's the kingpin, like controlling his father's empire.
Yeah, because...
Not the Marvel kingpin. He's just the kingpin
right. He takes over like Russell Crowe's role. And then because the Rhino character told him about that doctor in New York, he goes and just like meets this guy and has the same procedure done to him, and whatever it fucking does to him, he ends up becoming like the chameleon character from the comics.
They set up early on that he's really good at imitating other people's voices.
Right. So it's just
So
stupid.
now he gets a procedure done so he can actually change his likeness to other people.
Right,
So he
so-
changes into Kraven, but he's still like
But he's
short
still like a
and
tiny
little.
little dude.
So
Yeah, when
it's
he's facing him on the bridge and he's like a tiny guy. And it's like, it reminded me of like Captain America.
exactly,
when Chris Evans is tiny and skinny.
Right, and you got his big Chris Evans head
Yeah,
on
and
him.
it's supposed to be
yeah.
like this serious moment, but like everyone's just laughing
Yeah.
because of how stupid he looked. Mm-hmm. So then like he has this massive character shift, which is like, where the fuck did this come from? Like Kraven went out of his way to like save his brother when his brother was gonna like shoot Rhino. He like stopped him. He's like, no, like that's not you. I'm the killer. You go back to doing your thing. And then he just flips and becomes like this fucking soulless villain now. And Kraven's like, well, now I gotta stop you. Okay. And that's basically the whole movie. It is a fucking slog.
It is absolutely fucking painful to
Yeah.
sit through.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
It's not an attractive looking movie.
No, it's shot like shit.
It is. It looks like fucking ass.
It looks terrible. There are like a few moments here and there, like the opening scene, maybe like some of that car chase where I was like, okay, this is like halfway decent.
There's a couple moments of action that aren't that bad.
Yeah,
You
the
know?
whole like when his brother gets kidnapped and he's like going after them, running after the car, and like he's like relentless, and then they get in the helicopter and he's still coming after them. He's like chasing them the whole way.
Yeah.
That was like a decent sequence.
The sequence and the idea behind the sequence wasn't that bad. Now there's some dodgy effects in there that look like shit. But in terms of like, oh wow, this is actually kind of got some energy to it.
Right.
That's like the only scene in the film that had that.
Right.
That in the opening.
No, the rest of the film is just like you're bouncing around from shitty scene to shittier scene, worse dialogue to worse dialogue. I mean, there's a fucking moment in this movie where Kraven asks Calypso like, "Oh, do you have any more of that serum juice?" And she's like, "Oh, my grandmother only gave me one vial. Like she died after she gave it to me."
And I never saw her
And then I
again.
never saw her again. What the fuck? Like, who wrote this shit? Like the actor didn't even read this and be like, guys, this doesn't even make sense.
It's like the writers knew they were writing the worst fucking dialogue possible, and so they threw that line in there just to see if the studio would have still been like, cool.
Yeah.
And they were like, holy shit.
We got it through.
It's through.
We could literally write whatever we want, and no one will stop us.
Like, we were fucking dying when she said that line. It was so stupid.
Let's just like hit all the stupid shit.
Yeah, I'm just
like all the
making-
fucking dumb notes.
Turtleneck. She died not too long after that trip, and I never saw her again.
It's just like, God, and she delivers that line too, like a board of fucking wood.
That chick is fucking horrible.
Dude,
she is such a
when
bad actress.
She's at her firm because she's a lawyer,
Oh,
and she's like
of
on the
course.
phone, and they're like, they're gonna come after you. You gotta get out of there. And she's standing, looking over the atrium of the building, and like,
She's like-
five guys in suits come walking in.
She's like, wait a minute. There are 5 guys that look suspicious. They're just wearing the suits.
5 guys who are walking with purpose, and she's like 8 stories up. She's looking down. She just sees like the tops of these guys.
She works
She's
at
like, they don't belong here. I gotta get out of here.
She works at a law firm, and 5
There's
guys
like
come in
hundreds of
wearing
people in
suits.
this building. She knows all of them, what they all look like, and then we wrap the whole thing up with a big old CGI bear killing Russell Crowe.
Yeah, he was
And,
the puppet master behind the whole plot. Rhino was becoming a problem for him, and he
Yeah.
knew that he couldn't stop Rhino, but he knew his son could stop Rhino. But he knew
Yes.
his son wouldn't work with him, so he had to set all this stuff in motion so there would be
Right.
a showdown between Kraven and Rhino.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I couldn't even like explain what you just explained because it's so fucking stupid. My mind is already starting to purge this film. It's been what, 24 hours since we've seen it, and there's chunks of this film that are already gone from my memory.
Same. It's just too boring to stick around in your brain.
And then he goes back in the final scene to the house where his dad left him something. It is the Kraven coat. It's like, I guess it's what looks
Like
like,
the
a lion
mane.
mane or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
and then it's just like this leather vest.
So-
and then he just sits
So
down
it's like a Conan the Barbarian moment where he like
Yeah.
sits down on the throne at the end, you know? But in this version, there's a mirror in front of him, like perfect lighting coming in through the fucking window, and like he sits down and poses. It's like fucking abs sticking out.
like
just
his abs are just perfect.
with that fucking look on his face that he has.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
That was shit. And I guess this is supposedly the end of the Sony non-Spider-Man Spider-Man films.
If you're gonna end strong.
Hell of a way to go out. Ranking wise, we did compare this in terms of how shitty it was to Madam Web. This was bad equally almost, but for slightly different reasons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I ended up going 3 out of 10 on this one.
I ended up with the same rating.
3 out of 10. I think we were slightly lower on Madam Web, but only because...
Which is weird. Madam Web is like, in terms of like the filmmaking and all that, the execution is worse. But as we said earlier, it's a lot more fun to watch because it is just such a train wreck that you just laugh your ass off.
We were definitely laughing more watching Madam Web.
Yeah, this one was, we were like bored out of our fucking mind.
Yeah.
There is some DNA in this film to like be pretty good.
Yeah.
So either be pretty good or at least be so shitty that we're like laughing about it.
Right. It's neither.
It's neither, exactly. So does it look like shit? Yes. Is the filmmaking bad? Yeah. Is it as bad as Madam Web? On those fronts, I don't know about that, but it still is definitely in that territory.
Yeah. And because it's just so fucking bad, like, I had to go back and try and remember, like, was there even any other shit from the other scale in this movie?
Yeah, the rainbow stuff.
The rainbow scale?
I think that the way they got Russell Crowe on board, this was the pitch. It's like, this is, I can just see the director, the writers, like, this is really at its backbone a story about a father and his sons. You know, as an actor, you're like,
tell me more.
You know? And so that's kind of how they got him. But in that story between his father and sons, there is that toxic masculinity aspect of the story.
Correct. Very, very toxic father.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, like basically the father is trying to teach his sons to be a man, grow some balls.
Right.
And when you do that in a film nowadays, the guy who's instilling those values into his sons
is the villain.
Yeah. Right. And he's like doing it in the most toxic way possible.
Right.
And it's like...
Yeah, so there's that there.
Yeah. That was the biggest offender.
Yeah. And I'd say that scene with Calypso and her grandmother, not only was it poorly written, poorly acted, they were just going on about how, like, they just came from this line of, like, perfect, powerful women, and I was just like...
Yeah, there's that line in there.
Did they, though?
Not a chance.
I don't know. I have questions. I have doubts. Anyway, there was just something about that scene that annoyed the shit out of me.
No, that line is in there, and like it's definitely there. So you got some of that independent, powerful women bullshit, and it's like, because you're like, there's whole generations of powerful women, and it's like, how far back does this go? When did this start?
Yeah.
Why have we never fucking heard about this before? So there's that, yeah, and then of course, you know, Calypso becomes
But she's pointless in this fucking movie too.
Yeah, but she still becomes a high-powered attorney, boss bitch.
Yeah.
So you got that aspect, but is it the most woke thing in the world?
Not really, not at all.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I went 1.5.
Yeah, same.
This movie's so shitty for other reasons that that's like the least of its problems.
This really was bad. This definitely is bottom barrel for the year.
What a shitty way to close the year out.
Man, what would you rather watch, this or The Crow remake?
Fuck. The Crow. Because that was at least funny to watch, how shitty it was.
You get to see his wardrobe at least, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and you get that third act, a little more to chew on.
Definitely the worst films of this year, though.
Yeah.